Hello there and welcome to this very special Community Reporter edition with Microsoft Ignite. I'm honoured, privileged and really super excited to have two of my friends here today. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but I do want to say a hearty welcome to Buck and to Cathrine. I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'm so happy to be with them today. So Buck.
Oh, me first.
Wow,
first,
okay. We should do Cathrine first.
Exactly, we should, right? That would be proper. Cathrine,
yes.
You go ahead.
All right, I can go first. Hello, my name is Cathrine Wilhelmsen. I'm a data platform MVP. I'm a returning community reporter this year, assisting you with a few tasks on ground. And yeah, I'm also speaking at Ignite. I'm doing a lot of other things with group idea swaps and having a lot of fun with my friends.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's good. Thank you.
Awesome.
And Buck, what's up, Buck?
Hey. So I'm Buck Woody. I'm an applied data scientist here at Microsoft, and I do a little bit of everything. I've often been called Microsoft's house cat because I end up in many different places. I was an MVP as well before I joined Microsoft on the SQL Server side, and then spent some time in the SQL Server org and developing some of SQL Server 2008 back in the day, and then how it's grown up, right? And
absolutely.
Then joined Department of Defense Services for a little while and was on other teams, and then I was asked a few years ago to join the data science team. So I go all the way back to the old AI in the 1970s, the expert systems. So this is sort of returning to my roots, if you will.
So looping back.
Yeah.
It's kind of, so yeah, what will be the next after AI? What did you do after the 70s AI stuff?
Databases. So I've always told people have asked me, as a professional, what should I do? And I speak in tons of countries. I've met you both in various countries,
yes.
right? And I've always found that you'll always have a job if you know databases or security. Those are the two places I've found never get outsourced, never get changed. There's always things to learn and do. Companies always need it. It'll never change that they need data and security. And I've even done database security, and that also is a huge area. So I think next is just going to be an enlargement. It's all data, isn't it? Don't you?
Yeah. I agree, and I think especially with the new announcements we've seen with SQL Server 2019, I am so excited about all of that. It feels like SQL Server is becoming a really part of the big data family of solutions, as well as the relational database family of solutions. So I wondered what you both thought about that. What do you think, Cathrine? I just think it's such an exciting time.
Yeah, and I think what they call it now is the unified data platform. And it's exciting because we've seen kind of all of these things pop up in Azure first. So it's all in the cloud. And now the cloud is coming back to on-premises. So they're bringing in things like the Spark. And yeah, I think unified data platform is what they call it now. So now you can do all of this big data stuff on premises as well. So now we're, even expanding and enlarging, like you said, and that's very exciting.
Right.
And I have to learn all of these things now, which is a little scary, but also very exciting.
Yeah.
That's true. What do you think, Buck, particularly of all the Spark announcements as well? I just think it's so interesting.
It is interesting. The idea that SQL is now including Java, as you see, as a language. So database folks now have the availability to use Python. They can use R. They can use Java. And now they can use Spark languages as well. So you've got this limitless palette. And I guess I always counsel people that you can go one of two ways. You can either be a generalist and know where things fit and what should be used when. And the smaller shop you're in, the more you're asked to do that. But you can also go deep on one of them. Maybe you say, I'm the deep data person, or I'm the person that's going to learn the analytics side, or I'm going to do, we've had this, haven't we? There are SSIS experts, and there are reporting services experts, and there are analysis services experts, right?
And I think what I've seen in some cases are we're T's, like the letter T, so you're broad, but then you're also specializing in something. And I thought that was a very good way of thinking of that.
That's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So much. Never run out of something to learn.
That's true, absolutely. Because I think, Cathrine, you're really specialising in automation as well, and that's been so important for data. It's not just about finding those results, but you have to make sure everything else is in play to really support that. being a production environment. So I wondered what your thoughts were in that area.
Absolutely. So I've mainly been focusing on the data integration side and doing all of the prep work that you need to do before you can do fun things like, the machine learning and the AI stuff, because without data, you're not really able to do anything. So my specialty there is on the data integration side, and I've been very traditionally heavy on the SSIS side. SSIS is a teenager now. I think it was back in 2005, so it's a teenager now, which is kind of fun. And for SSIS, back then, you didn't have all of the tools that you have today. So we had to find other ways to automate that. And that's why I specialized in BIML, Business Intelligence Markup Language, for scripting and automating things in SSIS. And that's kind of funny because in SSIS, you did all the dragging and dropping. Then that kind of became tedious for large enterprise projects, so we found new ways to work around that with BIML for automating those things. But now we're coming back, and now we're seeing with tools like Azure Data Factory that we're going back to the little, dragging and dropping. But the reason we can do that is because they've solved some of those pain points that we had in SSIS. But now those are gone, so now we can do the fun things and use a pretty interface. But yes, absolutely, in anything, automation, scripting, reusability is something that I'm very, very passionate about. It goes with PowerShell. So there's a huge PowerShell community for SQL Server as well, and it's all about doing that reusability, scripting, automating, and not really doing the same things over and over again, because we hate that. We don't want to sit and do the same things and get bored out of our minds and then end up making mistakes because we forget that little one thing one time. So, yeah, absolutely.
We're quickly bored and easily distracted, I think.
Yes.
All of us, right?
Shinies everywhere.
And I'll echo this, the idea of the data engineering side. In data science, there's now becoming, as it's maturing, there's becoming defined roles, and the data scientist tends to focus more on the algorithms and the math and so on. But that's not actually the bulk of the time of the work. It's a lot of work, but it's not the bulk of the time of the work. Mostly it's the data engineering side, and it's got to come from somewhere, and it's got to go to somewhere, and there's security, and there's speed and performance, and there's access and data paths, and all these different things that you need to think about. And so a data engineer now, we're actually seeing, when I travel around the world, you may have a data scientist in a team, and 4 or 5 data engineers that are doing the CI/CD and the DevOps side and all of that. And it's very important. And I highly advise that database administrators and data professionals take a look at the data engineering role.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's going to become even more important with SQL Server 2019, because you can actually use ODBC and you can query Oracle and you can query other sources as well, such as Hadoop. What I love about that from the BI perspective is breaking down those vertical silos that we see in organizations. You must see this all the time. And it's such a fantastic thing in business intelligence to look horizontally across a technical estate. And I think organizations find it very easy to say, what happens in specific departments? So something like, what does a 5% increase in sales affect the marketing department? They can tell you that, but it's not so easy to say, well, how does that affect my whole organization if we have a 5% increase in sales? And the reason for that is a horizontal aspect. It's very hard to look horizontally. So I think actually what you're saying with the automation and the intelligent laziness about trying to do things smarter and better is going to become so much more important, because you won't just be dealing with SQL Server, you'll have Hadoop in there, HDFS, we'll have Spark in there as well. And I guess that's really where you can do data engineering as well, can't you, in Spark?
Oh, absolutely,
and
yes,
Python.
certainly. And it can be done in many places. And one thing I'll echo as well, that what you said, I have never automated myself out of a job. I have always, the second I figure out how to do something, I immediately try to script it. Back in the day, Perl and C scripts and Bash scripts back in my Linux days, and now with PowerShell, it's just so easy. So we have a saying in our team, and what we tell people is, first sort of codify, so identify what you're trying to do, and then sort of standardize, do it the same way more than once, and make sure it's repeatable, and then automate. So codify, standardize, automate, and we just loop that, and we just drain out anything. If you type it twice, you should be automating it, right? And there's some way to automate it, right?
Don't
and so
repeat
that's awesome.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And I think actually I found in my career, the more data you give away, the more people want.
That's right.
No one ever said, oh, we've got enough reports now, we've got enough data. They just say, right, now we're going to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where the analytics comes in, because it always provokes a question. And there's always another question behind the question.
Oh, sure.
And it just keeps going in this analytic cycle. I guess that's something you must both see, this
Sure. People
endlessness.
focus on what happened, and that's just queries and so on, and then what happened in the aggregate, right? And then we think about in BI, we can now start finding out why did it happen. And then with predictive analytics, even data mining back in the 80s and 90s, we ask ourselves, what will happen next? And then now with AI, we can even say, what should we do about it?
Yes.
And get those what ifs, and not only the what ifs, but have it just take care of it. If you know what to do, then do it. If I'm bumped from a flight, just put me on the next one, right? Just take care of that for me, right? One would hope the airline industry catches up soon.
Absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much both for your time. It's been my absolute pleasure to speak with you both. And I just want to say a big thank you for joining me here today. It's been my pleasure to speak with you as always.
Yeah.
And I hope you both have an amazing Ignite.
Yes, it's always good to see both of you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you,
It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.